Are you ready to learn the real deal, the down and dirty, the nitty gritty of perimenopause? This is the episode for you, sister. Tune in to learn the symptoms you will notice during the different phases of perimenopause, how long healing takes so that you take advantage of this amazing time, and the most important places to start to feel relief and thrive. Let's dive in. What's up, sister? Welcome back to the Period Whisperer podcast, the show helping perimenopause and menopause women de-stress your body and decode what it's saying to you so you can own your own health, energy, and weight loss again. If you're new, I'm so happy you're here. I'm Bria. I'm your host, a recovering people pleaser and hustle addict turned functional and holistic hormone specialist. Let's lean in and learn what your body is saying to you. Hey, sister. Welcome back to the Period Whisperer podcast, to one of our expert interview episodes. You're going to love this one because I have the amazing Jenn Pike on. She is a medical exercise specialist and functionally integrative diagnostic nutritionist who specializes in women's health and hormones. She is the best-selling author of 3 books. She is fiercely driven and the founder of the Hormone Project, Synced, and the Audacious Woman. These are powerfully potent programs dedicated to empowering and teaching women what they should have known already about their bodies all along. It's the incredible healing abilities, the wisdom and power they hold, and how to bring them to life. Jenn sits on the advisory board for Strong Fitness magazine and serves you up weekly doses of education, wisdom, and inspiration on the Simplicity Sessions podcast, which is her podcast that has served more than 3 million women in helping support them in this time. She is the OG. She knows this stuff well. As an inspired wife and mom of 2, she understands that true well-being as a woman is a journey to be enjoyed, not a struggle to be forced. And she will inspire you in this episode and in her podcast. So I'm really excited to get into some of the truths of perimenopause that you need to know and how to begin to thrive. Here's Jenn. Well, hey there, Jenn. Welcome to the Period Whisperer podcast. I am so thrilled to have you here.
Oh, thanks. I'm happy to see you again because we just did this on my podcast not too long ago, and I'm excited for our conversation today.
Me too. I love so much what you do, what you stand for, how you serve and help women. Like for me, you're really an inspiration to me as well, as I know a lot of other women. And I was thinking, we can take this conversation in so many directions, but I think I shared with you, I really want to, or what I thought would be really powerful anyway, is to have a conversation around the impact, the importance of, and the opportunity of this transitional phase for women. But before we dive in, I would love for you to share a little bit about you and your story, about how you came to be so passionate about empowering women and teaching them what they should have known about their bodies all along. So why don't we start there?
Yeah. So, it goes back quite some time. It's crazy, when I get asked this question or the opportunity to share, I've been, earning a paycheck in the industry of health and wellness for 27 years now. And, when I go really far back, I always knew growing up in my body, my oldest sister is 12 years older than me. So I always say, like, when I was 4, she was 16. And so I was being exposed to different conversations in my house and information about, women's bodies changing and things like that going on. And I can remember being very young and hearing things and kind of plugging that away and being like, I feel like that's something that I'm going to need at some point or that I should remember. And then when I was in high school, like even at the age of 14, 15, I've always been in a gym environment. My dad always took me to the gym with him. And I grew up with that as something that was just very normal and common in our environment. And I've always, listened to my body and really paid attention for so many years. I would just like follow the plan, follow the program. But I could always hear my body communicating, I like this or I don't. That's for them, not for me, those kind of things. And so I started teaching group exercise when I was really young. And, I was teaching the adult classes by the time I was 17. That's when I registered my company. And in the beginning, I thought, I'm just going to be this, big personal trainer. I was like, wouldn't it be cool to be like a celebrity personal trainer and, work with, certain people at a stage. And what ended up happening for me is when I went away to school and I started to study more about, kinesiology and biomechanics and movement, is I found myself being really attracted to working with athletes because everything was very like system approach and there was a lot of structure. And then from that structure, because it was predictable, you could really help people elevate their performance and their results. And so I worked with a lot of athletes, primarily NHLers, hockey players, the boys that were part of the farm teams getting prepared to go up into the big leagues. And it was really fun for a long time until I started to be part of a different environment where I was part-time personal training all women, in the town where I grew up, and a lot of them were moms. And I was trying to apply these same kind of masculine structured systems and principles to their bodies. And we were getting some results, but it was not the same. And it wasn't that, in the beginning, I can remember, putting it in my brain and being like, well, what am I not doing right for them to not get the results? And when I reframed it and recognized that it was actually their body talking to me and saying, like, this week is not the week I'm going to be able to perform and do that thing, or I need more recovery, or I need a lighter load, or this is the week that I can be more intense, but I could not create that and have that predictability session over session. And so that really had me like pull back and go, there's something here, because this is happening with every female client that I have. It's not just one. Yeah. And so that's when I really started to dive in and understand that training my clients once their periods were done and for the next couple of weeks, incredible results. Training them the week coming into their period, and if they were on their period, very different results. Yeah. Training my clients who had had children and who were postpartum, very different. Training my women who were in their late 30s, their 40s, and their 50s, who were going through hormonal changes, very different. And so I started to really allow my work to also become my lab, essentially, where I was, being hired to train these women, but these women were teaching me. And then I went back to school. I went back in early 2000s, 2001, and went back to school and added holistic nutrition onto what I was doing. And then also realized these women were coming to me and saying, I went to my doctor and I asked for blood work because I'm not feeling good. And they said everything's fine and I'm fine, but I sure as heck don't feel fine. And I was like, well, can I see the blood work? And so when they would bring the blood work in, I would understand a little bit of what I had been taught in some of my, courses and lectures in school, but not to the degree that I knew I needed to. So then I went back to school again to understand blood chemistry and really what all of that meant, what optimal and suboptimal meant, and how all of these different elements of testing really talked and communicated with one another, that you couldn't just look at, a singular marker like thyroid or like glucose and then define something based on the one marker, that different results, what was happening with your sodium and potassium was also connected to what was going on with your thyroid. And so it was learning those. Then I came back to my clients and was like, hey, how you were saying that you're cold all the time and you're constipated and we're struggling with you losing weight and your hair is falling out and your sleep's not the best. And, you feel like you have something going on with your thyroid, but your TSH, the one marker they're testing you on, is totally fine, but you don't feel like that resonates. I'm like, maybe it's this thing. And so then that started to happen. Then I became a mom, and that just totally changed everything for me, because not just the role of becoming a mother, but the difference in feeling my own body as a woman in pregnancy and postpartum, something massive changed for me. And it's like this whole new portal opened up of having compassion and understanding for women. Like, oh, when you say you don't feel the same, it's because you'll never be the same. And, it's just a massive shift we go through physically, mentally, and emotionally. So then that's when I really started to dive deeper into hormones, was in my late 20s. Really understanding and going through some of that. And then in my mid 30s, when I owned my own in-person studio and boutique and had, a team of 26 and, loads of members, I hit a level of definitely what I would describe as burnout, where I literally just couldn't get up and do the thing one day, like seemingly overnight, right? And we know that doesn't happen that way. Right. And so then that had me dive even deeper into when people are talking about, hormone changes, because everyone around me was like, Jen, it's just because, you have 2 kids that are busy and you're running a business and you're busy and, like you're in your mid 30s and everyone was doing, it's just. And I was sitting there and I'm like, I understand that. I get it. I totally get it. There's lots of evidence that could make me believe that that's just it. But I can tell there's something else going on in my body where me living the way I've been living and not knowing what I should have known all along, there's some deficiencies in some pockets I need to dive into.
Yeah.
And so this was like exploring what was going on in my body and really changing everything once again and understanding I didn't have the same capacity, bandwidth, threshold in my mid 30s that I had when I was building my business and crushing it
Yeah.
in my 20s.
Yeah.
And, you know, in the beginning, I was kind of disappointed by that because I had defined myself based on that productivity. But then I was actually so grateful because intuitively, like, I actually really didn't want to go at that pace anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's like my body gave me permission because she was saying, you know, we've been talking to you and you've just not been listening. So now we're going to park your ass here. So you have no option.
The body
And
does. Yeah.
the body keeps score. The body knows. The body's always telling us. And so then that for me is really where, you know, changing everything based on where I was at in parts of my cycle came into me. And that honestly, that helped rehabilitate my adrenals and my nervous system because I just had a different level of, you know, kindness and push with my body at different times. So it's like I started to live life a little bit like interval training where there was like intensity, but there was ample recovery.
Yeah.
And that started to feel really good. And then as I got into my, you know, around 37, 38, couple years after that, I really started to notice some symptoms where I was like, what is this now? Like, what am I moving into? And that's what started to dive me deeper into understanding perimenopause. This big gap again where, you know, you grow up and you get told maybe like you're going to get a period, and then when you get that period, don't get pregnant. That's like literally the education that we're given. And then one day you're not going to have that period. You're going to be done having babies, and then you're not going to have that period, and now you're going to be postmenopausal. And you know this, there are so many transitions and different phases that we go through. And perimenopause, which really has only come to the forefront of being a normal conversation in the last like 18 months. Let's be honest. It's like as the menopause has like come forward online. Seriously, that's what it's been. And so me going back, like I'm going to be 45, and me at 37 is when I was like, something's different. And I started to dive in. And at that time I was, reading education from Laura Brydon and Aviva Romm and Felice Gersh and just all these pioneers in the industry. And it wasn't being sensationalized. It was literally just being described in a very like calm and, feminine way. But this is what we need to pay attention to. So I again started to work differently with women in my practice. It's when I created the Hormone Project in 2017. I moved my own body through some things first. Then I beta tested it on some of my private clients. And then I was like, more women need to know and understand what is coming, like what is happening in their body. And now, that was 2017. I sit here in 2024 and still teaching, the Hormone Project, but now to practitioners. And now I've just launched the Perimenopause Project because right now, like I know my next X amount of years, this is the work I'm going to be doing because, half the population is women and half of that half is going through perimenopause and menopause. And again, we have so much information coming to us right now. The problem is that we have information. We're not going beneath the surface of someone's 90-second reel and 300 character caption. I don't know that many of us are learning. I think we're just reposting and we're parroting what is being said. And we're not, and we're listening to too many different voices. And so you put that inside of a woman's body who already feels confused with what's going on in her. And now every day, if she's going on social or she's listening to a podcast or she's reading a book, she's being told like, no, it's this, no, it's this, no, it's this. And you should do that and you should not do that. And there's just so much that for me, the Perimenopause Project is a soft place to land for ladies for a couple of months to really just understand, like I said, what is happening in your body, the things you don't even have symptoms about yet that are actually happening behind the scenes. How do you start to know what do you need to do to get in front of some of that in terms of working with your doctor, your functional practitioner, your lifestyle, your nutrition, your movement, all of those different things, so that when you start to have some symptoms that now feel like they're getting in the way of you being able to just live your life,
Yeah.
go through your day, you're not freaking out and panicking and not feeling like you don't know what's happening. You're like, okay, this is what she was talking about. This is what one of the other ladies in the program shared about her story. It didn't resonate with me at the time. And now I feel like I'm living that story.
Mm.
And so we start to become more resourced as the woman,
Mhm.
because we have to, in order to really take care of ourselves. Like, we have to be part of the relationship, we have to be part of the conversation, we
Yeah.
have to have the courage to ask the question that is not being asked to us. We have to have the courage to say, I don't think that that is actually the best for me, and to go to somebody else. And so, why I'm so passionate about all of this is, I think that, being a woman is one of the most incredible gifts that we ever could have been given.
Yeah.
And I'm raising a young woman and I'm raising a son. And I have just been that girl and that woman now in so many environments and transitions in my life where women have just fallen apart because they didn't know what was going to happen or what was coming next. And I look at that and I'm like, that is 100% preventable.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jen. And I think like what really stood out to me when you were talking about your story there is just you've had a great ability to hear your body, trust her, and then
Mhm.
respond. And I think that's what you do so well in how you educate. But one of the biggest challenges I think we have as women is not just listening, but also trusting that what our
Yes.
body is telling us is something that it needs.
Yeah. I'll say from personal experience, because for everyone it's going to be different.
Mm.
For me, that trust came from the fact that I was working in an industry where people were coming to me with a struggle. And every woman that I worked with was really a mirror for me to see, like, Jen, if you don't believe your body when she is giving you this nudge and saying that, if you don't trust what's happening, the woman sitting across from you, like, that's going to be you. You're going to be in those same situations. Because at the end of the day, for so many of these women, when you spend time and you help someone go back in their timeline of their health and history, no one hits burnout overnight. No one has an inflammatory condition, an autoimmune disease, endometriosis, PCOS, horrible hot flashes. No one has that overnight. There's all these clues and these signs along the way, but because we've not been taught, like, listen, pay attention, listen,
Yeah.
ask a question, those kind of things. When it feels like the rug gets pulled out from under us, we then believe the story, it happened overnight. So for me, I was seeing all of these stories evolve for these women I was working with. And it's kind of like I was taking notes and researching the whole time over 27 years and didn't even realize it until my body would have an experience and I would go, "Oh my gosh, this is what so and so shared with me. Huh. Okay. And not in a way where, because listen, working in this industry, and also not even a lot of the women I work with are high level, achievers and in business and not even in health. Like, they're just in business.
Yeah.
So that energy can oftentimes be like, there's a problem, I'm going to tackle it. And your body does not want to be tackled. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, you're, you cannot. I was training a client this morning, and, she has created this incredible brand and business, and she's so smart and she is so capable. And she is like, when you talk about being a visionary and thinking outside of the box, like, that's the definition of who she is. And she's trying to apply the same tactics to changing her health. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that. And she's like, but why though? Like, and it's that thing where we check off the list. We're like, I'm taking the supplements. I'm eating the protein.
Yeah.
I'm doing
Like
the stupid
workout.
workout. I am like, and we're so mad
Yeah.
and it's like, if only it were that simple.
Yeah. It can almost break that trust because when the world is telling us like these are the four things you need to do and you're to like feel amazing and then you're doing it and it's not working in your body, it really does it makes you feel like
Yeah.
there's something wrong with you. And
Yes.
it's just not how the body works.
Yeah. It really isn't. And especially when we're talking about a time like perimenopause. I mean, perimenopause, I think it's like the longer I teach about it and the more that I stay a student and learn about it, um, I get asked all the time, like, what's the one thing that you wish women knew going through perimenopause? And my answer changes as time goes on because I learn and feel, different things. And I've been teaching and leading a lot of retreats lately and spending a lot of time not really talking to women, but listening to them. Like, there's a big difference when you spend time with a woman and you're the one that's like talking and asking all the questions. And then when you actually be quiet and you just let her talk,
Yeah.
you learn so much. And so this last month, I have been learning so much about other women's experiences and stories. And, my response today is different than what it was 3 weeks ago. And it'll probably be different again in 3 weeks as to what I wish for them. But at the end of the day, I really just wish that women understood that perimenopause is not this like torturous, shitty period of time that we have to just like, grit our way through and just manage and get through. It is an incredible awakening and a remembering and a reclaiming in our body. It's a time when like your bullshit meter will get real fucking small, where you're just like all of a sudden you find yourself without patience and frustration, and you think it's because your hormones are declining, which they very well could be, but that's part of by design. Is when we don't have those same resources for us to have the patience to put up with the stuff we don't want to do anymore, to like, wear the mask of the face. It's like everything's okay. And like, sure, I'd love to. And you can't do that anymore. People on the outside will be like, oh, she's like going crazy or losing it, or she's like getting really crusty in her age. It's like, no, we're getting honest. We are having discernment. We are creating boundaries, and we are deciding what is no longer for us. Like what I've learned in these last
to do that for our
this is it.
For survival.
And we're not designed to go at the same pace all the freaking time, let alone decade over decade over decade. And so, in these last few weeks, the theme for me and coming out of these experiences has been realizing, perimenopause is a beautiful season of subtraction. It is a season of subtraction. So there'll be subtraction lesser than of progesterone and estradiol and probably, androgenic hormones from the adrenals like DHEA and testosterone, and cortisol will shift in our way we respond with insulin and leptin and ghrelin and all of that. Yep. Yes. And we will also get to a point where we start to realize that in order to move forward and really feel good in our bodies, and to thrive, that we need to subtract some things out of our life at this time that no longer serve us. And I think the message right now is actually, here's more that you need to go and do. You need to add this, 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 you need to add this. Again, amazing, incredible, wonderful. Can so many of the things that we're talking about, we'll chat about some of them today, help you? 100% they can. But if you are trying to stack the more on top of what already feels like the too much, where do you have time for that? And how are you possibly going to feel that that's manageable? So what I really do with a lot of women is I help to teach them how to subtract out the things that are taking up a lot of space, a lot of time, just leaking your energy. Then when we do that, we create space. And now you have the opportunity to start to actually bring in some of those awesome new habits and some of those new routines. And the great thing that happens, Bria, is that when we start to let go of, like literally in the beginning, you just need to let go of one thing you don't want to do anymore. Oh my God, your body is just like, thank you. Thank you so much. And then all of a sudden, remembering to drink the water doesn't feel so dang hard. Remembering to take your magnesium before bed, the desire to want to go for a walk, guess what? That actually feels joyful instead of a workout because you created space.
Yeah. Doing less to create space to do more of the things that are good for you.
Yeah. As where for so many of us, we've just led our life. And I am 100%, I was the same.
Yeah.
I am in a season of subtraction. I'm constantly looking at, I shouldn't even say looking, I am always paying attention to how things are feeling and then asking myself like, is this going to come forward with me, or is this going to be part of subtraction season? It's like the older I get, and it's not just like a chronological age thing, it's perspective and it's understanding, I've worked very hard in every area of my life, my whole life. And I loved it. It really served me for a long time. I was very, very happy spreading myself in all these different areas. It fulfilled me.
Yeah.
That energy of servitude. And I'm at a time in my life now where I'm like, good job, Jen. And guess what? You don't have to actually do that for all of those people and those situations and those events anymore. And it's hard because as women in perimenopause and menopause, there's an identity shift that happens.
Totally. Hmm. And
You
when
know,
you're,
we
yeah, we tie
yeah,
that
like
identity, that productivity, don't we?
100%. And we don't realize, we've trained people in our life what to expect of us all these decades. Like I trained my kids what to expect of me as a mother. I've trained my partner, my husband, to expect certain things. I've trained my friends, I've trained my clients, I've trained my online community to expect a certain thing from me. And when I'm changing and I'm shifting and I no longer want to do that, it is going to disappoint some people. You're for sure going to ruffle some feathers. But I think that that is also part of this journey transitioning hormonally, is that as we are losing some of what our body has always needed, and we can bring it and replace and do things like bioidentical hormone replacement therapy and all of that, because we do still need those hormones for protective brain, health and breast health and bone and heart, all of those things. And so that we can actually function optimally. But you can't just, slap HRT into your life without your life itself also going through some reflection.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I'm super curious on this one. Do you think that women are struggling more now with the symptoms of this transition than ever before, or do you think we're just becoming more aware of it?
I think yes. And so 100% we're struggling more.
Mhm.
I think if you also just look at historically, we all know this, that it's only been in the last 100+ years that there have been more and more women that are even living to and getting beyond menopause, right? Like living longer in that period of time. But I think it's just that, as women, we really have fought so hard to be able to have a voice and to be part of society in a way where we could also create the businesses and have our children and, be the human who had the opportunity to do it all, not just like be the woman who could do it all, but like just be, we fought for equality in so many different ways. And that's amazing. Like, I am so happy that I decided to create my sacred contract at this time in human history and come in and be here for all of this. However, we've tried to fight to get a seat at the table with someone that we are no one alike. Like, we are not men, and we don't have that same, engine that just continues to go. Our hormones don't reset every 24 hours. We don't have the same benefits and opportunities of recovery that most men do. And yet we are trying to go at the same pace all the time. And we're trying to do more than them because there's many different responsibilities. I also think that women are struggling more now than ever because of our environment. The amount of pseudochemicals and toxicity that we are exposed to that directly impact the receptors in our cells for our hormones, how our body naturally eliminates and drains and detoxes, is very, very different nowadays because of that toxic load of our environment. Social has made our minds so busy and has just, we think we only have the to-do list that lives in our journal. We have 1,000 to-do lists in our brain every day because of, like, we are just consuming so much. And that is contributing to the stress and the load for women as well.
Ah,
And everyone has a different story. So it could also be that, if you're a single mother and you don't have any partner support and you are raising children and trying to take care of yourself and trying to put food on the table, I can't even imagine. I know how it has felt in the past when my husband's gone away for a weekend
yeah.
and I have been like, so I always think of, you know, everyone is going to go through perimenopause and menopause, but no two women are going to have the same experience. No two women will have the exact same symptoms. And even if you and I were to sit side by side and compare notes, and it's like, yep, I got that, I got that, I got that. The reason that you have that and then I have that is not going to be the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And therefore, like how we support our bodies isn't necessarily going to be the same. And it's so interesting because there's a lot of women who will get pissed off
Mm.
when someone doesn't say, just go take this and do that. Like it, and this is where I encourage women, you got to stop this, because it's very easy to blame the doctor, blame the practitioner, blame the system, whatever it is. But I'm like, please show me and teach me where you're being part of this. Because if
Mm.
your expectation is for someone to tell you, you're not being taught. We shouldn't be asking someone to tell us. We should be going out there and going, can you teach me?
Mm. I
Can
love
you
that. That's a
teach
really
me?
good point. Yeah, that's super powerful, especially as with, I think, as you said, you called it the menopause, like this massive growth in the conversation, which of course is wonderful and comes with a lot of capitalization on like these menopause support supplements. Like take this and you'll feel better. And it really does cause, I think, more damage than it's worth because of the point that you're making here. We're not being taught. We're just
Yeah.
taking.
And listen, a lot of what they're talking about, are those things beneficial? They are, but what's going to benefit you and what's going to benefit me is different. So if we had more of that education piece, like, okay, talking about, let's just use like ashwagandha as a great example, right? For women with stress or with thyroid and things like that, or things like sage or even hormone replacement therapy. Can there be benefits? Are there benefits to all of those? Oh my goodness, yes, there is. But for every individual, it's going to be slightly different depending on what is going on in their body. It's the same thing with the messaging right now to so many women. You don't need to test, you can just go and take hormones. Okay, so here's the issue with that is maybe we don't need to test a woman's estrogen and progesterone right now in perimenopause because of the fluctuations. But there are so many other things that we need to be testing to understand her metabolic health, her health over her thyroid health, her mineral health, her gut health. Like there are a lot of other things. And so my concern with that is that we're just saying, don't worry. All we need to know is your symptoms, and then we can help you. And yes, we can help people based on symptoms. Like, when a woman needs progesterone, when she needs progesterone,
Yeah.
even like from a age bracket wise, it's like by your mid 40s, you want to be having a conversation with your practitioner 100% about progesterone and then also estradiol. So we do understand these things, but to simply just say, oh, because you're this age, just come in. We're going to give you 100 milligrams of this, and we're going to give you, a patch that's got that.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily what I believe to be true. And I've seen just a lot of that go sideways with women where they were connected to the medication or the HRT or the supplement. They were given the things to take, but they do not understand why. They don't understand what else was happening and going on. They do not understand how to support insulin. They do not understand how to support their adrenals. They do not understand, the importance of strength training and of walking and sleep. So they take the hormones. They may feel better in a couple of different areas, but they're like, I'm still not losing the weight. I still, have the brain fog. I still, whatever it may be. So again, this happens all the time in the industry. I've been in it for almost 3 decades. We come forward and we just fire hose the situation with all the information. And then we realize, oh, so what we've done now is we've missed the whole thing. We have to start to educate people, because what I see right now is a really big issue is what has happened online has had so many women now go into their doctor's office and be mad and demand that they have, HRT. Okay, well, here's the problem is that you as the woman are probably more resourced right there now with information than the actual doctor is, because there is a lag time of those professionals who weren't trained in menopause support to actually catch up to what the new information is regarding HRT. So you're going in and demanding from your doctor, who you have been taught doctors know everything, who actually don't know everything. Or you're going into your naturopath who actually doesn't even have a license to prescribe, because that's an additional license they have to actually go and get. And you're getting mad at them because they won't give you something that you've been told on Instagram and TikTok that you should have in your body.
Yeah.
And so we just have to slow down for a hot second and understand that you might be going to a provider that is an extremely intelligent, fantastic provider, but this isn't their area of expertise. So the reason they're saying no is that they don't actually know how to support you. And that's where we need to be more educated and then understand. So who should I go to that actually has some training and understands this a little bit better?
Yeah. No, I love that. I completely agree. And I think, one of the things I'd love to ask you about is really when we're talking about the symptoms that drive us to, perimenopause. So when you're working with women, because I think there's a bit of a gap here, like in all of your years of experience, in this particular phase of life, what are the challenges and symptoms that you hear that women are coming to you with? And
Mhm.
and how are those actually different from what these challenges are? This I feel like speaks a bit to better understanding the problems inside.
Yeah. So what I've seen again, like in just clinical experience over the years, and because there are many, many different symptoms, and they kind of start from like the more common initial ones to as time goes on, because we go through stages and phases of perimenopause, like early, mid, and then as we're getting closer to actual menopause. I would say in the beginning, the biggest one for women is that their sleep changes,
Mhm.
their mood changes. So the time before their period, like they maybe used to get a little bit PMS and now they're like, I go rage, or I am just so emotional and I just like cry for the 5 days before my period. That is not me. I don't know what's going on. Struggling with belly fat, hair thinning and hair loss, vaginal dryness, zero desire to be intimate, even though they love their partner and are super attracted to them. They just don't have that desire to want to be intimate. Their libido just is not there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I would say that then quickly starts to happen is there's just these kind of like odd, infrequent changes that happen in their period. Like they never used to get spotting before their period. And they're like, it's really weird. Now I have like a day or two of brown or light pink spotting. And I don't like need to wear anything, but when I wipe, I just notice something. I never used to get that before. Or all of a sudden I had like a 23-day cycle, and normally I have a 28-day cycle. I'm not too sure what's happening.
Yeah.
I had spotting mid-cycle. I'm not too sure what's happening. My boobs are like growing a size before my I am not too sure what's happening. I never used to have cramps or heavy periods. It's like a murder scene when I'm getting my period now. And the whole thing comes in like 2 days, and then it's like, bam, it's out of there. It's like, a magician. It's in, it's fierce, and it's gone. Or haven't had a period for 39 days, not pregnant, because I don't have desire to have sex. So I know I'm not pregnant, but I haven't had a period in 39 days. What the heck's going on? These are how the conversations start to happen. The other big one for women they'll come to me with is like, I'm not an anxious person. I actually think I have anxiety now. I am not a depressed person. I feel depressed. I do not understand why. These are the most common scenarios for me. Now, somebody else you could ask in their practice and their clinic could have a totally different scenario. These are the ones for me. And what I would say as well, too, is I started to notice with my personal training clients, they really didn't want to work out. They just wanted to talk to me. So like they would come, I'd be like, we're 17 minutes in and you're still you're still just hugging your knees to your chest on the mat, but they would just needed to come in and talk. So I also started to pick up on that type of stuff. So I would say that's the most common. And then as things start to kind of progress and you're getting a little bit more into, like I say typically between like 43 and 46 is where the first night sweat's going to happen. The hot flash might happen. And some women like I'm even 45. I've never had a hot flash. I've never had that happen. That hasn't been my experience, but I have girlfriends who are like, go to bed freezing, wake up and are just dripping and have to change the sheets.
Yeah.
Right. So as things go on, those are vasomotor symptoms. And again, everybody's going to be, and I find that my women who had more adrenal issues going on and thyroid issues tend to struggle more with the vasomotor symptoms. Not like as a rule, but I just have noticed there's like, interesting. There's a little bit of a connection there. And then obviously as time goes on, it'll be things like more urinary tract infections, pain during intercourse. A lot of women will say to me, I can't put a tampon or a cup in anymore because that sucker comes right back out. I can't hold it in anymore. And I'm like, okay, so there's some prolapse happening. There's vaginal atrophy that's happening. There's dryness that's happening. And this is important to pay attention to because there's early things we can do for women, like getting them to use, like a vaginal moisturizer that's hyaluronic acid and vitamin E. And just, we think about all the things we want to do to take care of the skin on our face. Well, inside as well, right? Like that needs to also be lubricated as estrogen is declining.
Yeah.
Right. And then maybe it's like a vaginal estrogen that women are given to help with the tissue, the atrophy. Like what that means is that it's actually shrinking and we're starting to lose the actual muscle tone and that connectivity in the tissue vaginally. And that's what's making penetration hurt, along with being dry. That's what's making it difficult for women to actually be able to have an orgasm and to be aroused optimally. And whether like, used to take a couple minutes, now it's like, 47 minutes. And I'm like just tapping out. Like I'm just like, I had a woman say to me one time and I like died laughing, but also it's so true. She said, I'm just at the point, with my partner where I'm just like, just pull my 90 down after and roll me over. Like, she's like, like, she's like, I can't, she's like, it's too much work.
Yeah.
And so, but all it took was like someone like that sharing that for the other women to be like, yes, that's what it is. I'm so tired at the end of the day. I'm just like, I don't have the energy for that much work, even though we want to be connected in that way. So, and then there's other things that can happen, like, vertigo is a big one, frozen shoulder. I mean, again, working in the fitness industry, always the women, they'd be in their 40s when that frozen shoulder would happen. The cognitive function. And this is one of the things I'm so passionate teaching women about is I've watched my mother-in-law, my husband's mother at 51, when she went through menopause, she like fell off a cliff when she went through menopause, and she gained weight very quickly and started to forget things and just was not feeling herself. And the doctor was like, this is just normal. You're going to forget where things are. And this is menopause. And in a couple of years, you'll be through this. Wasn't offered any level of support because she was right in that period of time when it was like, you don't give women hormones because they're going to get cancer.
Yeah.
So she wasn't given any support, any education. And, she's been in a home now with Alzheimer's since her, 60s. And it's just so sad to watch that. And then when you look at the research and the data, and Dr. Lisa Moscone is an incredible researcher about this. She's studied the brain, she's a neuroscientist and has now really applied this knowledge to what happens with when we go through menopause, because we have hormone receptors everywhere in our body and our brain is loaded with estrogen receptors. So for the woman who's going into menopause, who is losing estrogen, who also has insulin resistance, which means her body's not managing her insulin and her glucose the same way anymore, who is now more pro-inflammatory, her triglycerides, her cholesterol levels are rising, and she hasn't changed anything. This woman who's going through these things, I can guarantee you, she's still eating the same thing she's always eaten. She's still doing her same routine. So perimenopause and menopause are this understanding that you will change nothing and yet everything will change.
Yeah.
And so this is why it's so important for us to be resourced and educated, is that we need to make some lifestyle shifts and changes so that these symptoms, like ladies listening, please understand this. These symptoms are not here to try to, be a pain in your ass. They are here to get you to pay attention. And when they arise, here's another one that I think is really important for women. This is actually one of my first symptoms, and I was 37. I literally went to bed, and the next day that night tried to have a glass of wine. I could no longer drink. My body could not manage alcohol anymore. I would get congested. I was having a full-blown histamine response. So I'd get congested. My face would feel hot, flushed, and ruddy. I would have a crappy sleep. I would wake up very hot at some point in the night, feeling dehydrated. I would feel like I was actually drunk and I had had a glass.
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on? And then, and so I don't drink at all anymore, because that only has to happen enough times before you also start to realize, like, my days and my time is important to me. And I don't have 2 days of feeling groggy and hungover from a glass of wine to be able to waste. So, your relationship with alcohol is really important to reevaluate in perimenopause and menopause. When I work with women, and we run different functional labs, and we're looking at certain levels in the gut, certain enzymes, things like beta-glucuronidase, and we're looking at different metabolic pathways for hormones. If I see inflammation, aggravation, that is one thing I'm really going to help her work on, is decreasing her amount of alcohol. because of just the burden, not only that it's putting on the liver, but that it is increasing issues with our breast health. It increases our risk of fibroids. It is part of that metabolic health going downhill. And so I oftentimes find with women that when you try to have that conversation in the beginning, there can be a lot of resistance. Like I have so many clients who will say, I will do anything except for give up my chocolate, my dairy, my gluten, my sugar, my wine, and my coffee. I'm like, okay, so you'll do anything.
Yeah. That's one of the most powerful things. I mean, I am with you that we want to test, don't guess. But I think one of the most powerful things about testing is how humbling it is to literally see it on a paper and be able to tie it to your behaviors. And
Honestly.
people really struggle with motivation. But when you see that, I mean, there's just no more option anymore because you're like, oh,
Yeah.
you know?
And I say to women, I'm like, so I want you to understand, like, this is your chemistry. I didn't make this up. You pooped in the taco container. That blood in that vial was yours. You peed on those strips.
Yeah.
That's your hair sample we took and measured. That was your saliva.
Mhm.
And this is like when you can explain that to women in a way where, I mean, how cool is it that we have the ability to literally get a
Oh,
glimpse inside,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's saying to her, like, this is your chemistry. This is your story. This
Yeah.
is your storybook. And so now what we get to do is it's like you get to co-author the next part of the journey with your clients because
Yeah.
you get to take the information from their body. You get to take what they've told you, all the signs and symptoms and everything. And this is where the magic happens. Now, the struggle is that as society, we've been taught you just go for an appointment and you get your solution. And so women will come in and think one session and like, I'm good. And then, one session is never enough. Like, I just simply tell women now, if you're going to embark on a journey with us, like in our clinic or that, like we're doing a minimum of 6 months together because it takes most of us the first couple months to even get into a rhythm.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you brought this up. It's something that I always really drive home with my clients before we ever start to work together. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on like when it comes down to patience around
Mhm.
these changes, how do you explain it to your clients? What do you say to women about their expectations around seeing and experiencing and feeling results from their efforts?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll start off by saying the thing we all hear the most is like, this didn't happen overnight, so the results aren't going to happen overnight either. However, I'll go a little deeper than that because I've been in clinical practice since 2001. And so I have a lot of experience. And in my training, and I went through 3 different schooling systems for designations. I went through as a medical exercise specialist, I went through as a holistic nutritionist, and then a functional medicine diagnostic nutritionist. And in each of those scenarios, like when you're doing physio with someone, right out of the gate, you're like, it's going to be 12 weeks. Always. Doesn't matter what's going on with the person. The foundation of that industry is 12 weeks. As a nutritionist, it's 3 sessions. As an FMDN, that is a longer journey. And that's where it's like, let's say, for instance, if we're talking about adrenal and thyroid health, the woman who's like, I'm exhausted, I don't have the energy, I can't get through the day. I will explain to her and say, and this is why testing is important because I can show it. We're
Mhm.
looking at like an 18 to 24-month journey of being able to build those reserves back up. And it's explaining to her like you are this beautiful sum of the entire life that you have lived that is in front of me right now. Like who you are in this moment of us talking, this isn't a result of what you ate or what you didn't do on the weekend. This is your whole life has come up to this moment right now where you are here because those symptoms have gotten to a point where you're like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. So if we're going to start to unwind that, we need time to get your body back on our side. In order to make that change that's going to last, like your body has to trust us and this process and feel safe. And that is going to take time.
Yeah.
And so, that kind of in a nutshell, but then it's who you're working with. Like I work with a lot of mothers and I just say to them, when your kid is working on something really big in their life, are you like, you're going to wake up tomorrow and like you're going to have achieved it? It's going to have happened. It's like, no, you say to your kid, like, this is practice and you got to show up and it's going to take some time. And we have such compassion and grace for everyone else in our life. Everyone else in our life, every situation. Somebody wants to like climb the ladder at work or do the thing. We're like, small, daily, consistent habits. That's what's going to get you to achieve it. we have zero of that for ourselves. Zero. We're like, why isn't it happening right now?
And not only because the body does take time to get there to heal, but it's not like we can go off to like a 6-month yoga retreat here and have nothing else
No,
but our focus on
exactly.
our body. Like we have 100 things we do at the same time. So
Exactly. And I think the other thing is, as a woman to understand, so we are cyclical, we are phasical, and we are seasonal beings. And this doesn't end when your period ends. And so in our bodies as women, we go through something called folliculogenesis, which is about a 90 to 100-day journey within the actual intelligence of our ovaries. This is our egg wisdom that we have, where what that means in English is like any change that we create where we hope the downward effect or impact happens within our ovarian health is going to take about 90 to 100 days. That is a full season. That is like 3+ months. Okay. And so that part is important to understand. The other thing is that in many areas of our body, our cell turnover takes about 120 days, which instead of thinking about this like, oh my God, 120 days, 4 months for that to change, it's like, how friggin' cool is that? That like the whole lining of my stomach is going to be replaced essentially within X amount of days. That I can completely like reprogram the way that my kidneys filter and the way that my adrenal expression is in only 120 days. So it's changing the mindset.
lens. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love I think I love your script flipped there is so powerful and so important. And you've given it to us a few times today, like one about how the opportunity of perimenopause, two about how amazing, how quickly that actually can be when we think about it in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, this has been amazing, Jen. You've covered so much. And so we've talked about, the importance of this, what's really happening if we don't do anything about it. Maybe you can give us just a few little starting points for the women who
Yeah.
are listening. What are a few starting points for them when it comes to advocating for themselves and educating themselves, knowing themselves?
So the education and advocation piece is important. And so it's listening to things like this and like really listening, not trying to listen to this on 1.5 speed so you can like cram more in, but like listening to it and going back again and the things that really resonate or you're like, I didn't know that, or I want to ask like my practitioner or whoever about that next. Go and write that down. Really start to pay attention to your symptoms. Again, like it's very difficult to believe yourself if you just keep dismissing yourself all the time. And I say this often, it's like it's so easy for us to identify who is dismissing us in our life, but we don't realize how much we do it. So that is like starting ground number one. The other thing is, really like with the education pieces, have a couple different voices, but not like 40. So if right now your whole feed is everything to do with perimenopause, whoa, it's going to be very overwhelming. So maybe just like kind of condense and curate that down. And then the other thing is like from a lifestyle piece of support, there's two places that I love for women to start with. The first is pay attention to your digestion. So if you aren't pooping regularly, if you have a lot of gas and bloating, reflux, you feel like you have just like a food baby by the end of the day every day, I would really love for you to start to work with someone or focus on how you can better support your digestion. That could be things like eating better quality food, chewing the food, slowing down, using digestive enzymes. Sometimes it is things like bringing in pre or probiotic, starches or, bacteria, good ones into the body. It can even be simple things like, pooping with your feet on a stool so that you ergonomically are like in the right position, making time to have a bowel movement. And then so digestion is really important. And then the second thing is stabilizing your blood sugar. I know everyone feels like they're just being hit over the head with the protein conversation right now. And it's not only about protein, it's about having a plate that is balanced with equilibrium, meaning we have a great source of healthy protein, 30 to 40 grams in a meal. We have a great source of carbohydrates, and hopefully those carbohydrates also have fiber. Fiber for us as women, you want to support those cholesterol and triglyceride levels. You want to decrease your risk of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You want to optimize estrogen detoxification and support healthy poop. Make sure you're getting enough fiber that you can digest. Not everybody is meant to go have raw broccoli and cauliflower with hummus. That is not going to be, for some people, that is a bomb. That is not good. You might need to have it roasted, sauteed, steamed. So explore with that. And so, and then making sure you're getting in your healthy fat. So protein, carbs, fat, and fiber, so important. And we don't have to make it complicated in the beginning. We just need to visually look at our plate and see, where's the protein? Where's the carbs and fiber? Where's the healthy fat? Amazing. Now, can you eat that like 3 times a day? Can you not overfast? Can we please stop doing that in perimenopause and menopause? I am just like, and I want to say on this, fasting is and can be very therapeutic and healthy for the body. The problem right now in these last couple of years is they're abusing fasting techniques. They are using it purely to try to be smaller and to lose weight. They are not doing it for the therapeutic benefits, and they just keep shrinking the eating window and then shrinking the amount of food. So they're stuck in a consistent caloric deficit, which you want to get yourself into premature ovarian insufficiency and early menopause faster. Keep fasting and not eating enough and working out all the time. That's a great way to do it. So if that's your goal, that I just gave you the secret sauce. Just work out a lot, don't eat enough, and fast. And and tell yourself that your couple of coffees in the morning with some collagen and butter is a breakfast. That is the recipe to just plummet your system. We have to be nourished.
Yeah.
Like this period of time, this transition, here's what you have to remember. We are coming to a phase in our life where we literally have glands, organ systems in our body that are retiring. They are no longer going to be fulfilling the role and the duty that they once did. When those ovaries stop producing that rich level of estradiol, when that level of aromatization of testosterone into estrogen starts to slow down, when the adrenals start to slow their production of DHEA, when the adrenals are now the only ones responsible for eking out small amounts of estrogen and progesterone, and the brain has a small role in it too and a little bit in the liver, at that time, our body is not going, hey, lady, can you give me less? I'm feeling real good down here. Could you feed me less and ask more of me? Your body is asking you to create a shift and to move from a time of performance to nourishment. And if you want to continue to perform, like I love working out, I am never going to stop, but I understand if I am not nourished, I cannot perform. And if I am not nourished and I try and push myself to perform, I can't recover. And if I can't recover, I can't heal.
Yeah. And then you can't even do the daily things that you want to do. And
this is it.
What's the point? Jenn, this has been mind-blowing and amazing. I'm a huge fan. I love your podcast. I love following you on Instagram.
Thank
for
you.
everyone listening, where are these places? Where is the best place for them to continue to learn more from your amazing amount of knowledge?
Oh, thank you so much. So the podcast is called The Simplicity Sessions. I release a new episode every Monday. And the best place to stay connected is on Instagram. That's the only social media platform that I'm actually on. So it's Jenn Pike, 2 N's is my name. And then my website, jennpike.com. And you can see everything that we offer there. And we have loads of freebies and resources and connects you to the YouTube channel and all of that.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, for taking the time, for your inspiration and your expertise. I'm super grateful for it.
Thank you so much for having me here. I've really enjoyed our chat.
All right, sisters, you have heard it all. You know so much more today even than you did yesterday. So go out, be more in your life and not just less on a scale. And we'll catch you next time. Thank you so much for joining me on the Period Whisperer podcast. If you liked this episode, take 30 seconds right now to write a review on iTunes and then reach out to me directly on Instagram at Bria_period_whisperer and message me there with a screenshot of your review. As a thank you, I will give you a customized free hormone audit to get you on your way to the best health of your life in midlife.